In this presentation, we will take a look at some strategies that was developed and implemented with the intent to address the issue of overpopulation in prisons in California. Prison overpopulation has been an issue since 2007 and is a result of actions that were taken back in 1986. In 1986, President Ronald Reagan initiated the war on drugs. This caused individuals that lived in inner cities to be funneled into the prison system, which caused a spike in the prison population. When these prisons became overpopulated, inhumane living conditions were created. So since there wasn't enough housing for the influx of inmates, inmates started to live in spaces that weren't designed for dwelling, such as the gymnasium, day rooms, etc. This also caused the prison to lack the necessary resources to effectively treat inmates. So medical and mental health resources were not sufficient to effectively treat the influx of inmates that came into California prisons. This caused a number of lawsuits, and after these lawsuits, the Superior Court made a decision to implement Assembly Bill AB 109. This is what is commonly known as the Realignment Program. This program gave authority to state prisons to transfer eligible inmates from state prisons to county facilities. Not only did it give the authority to transfer inmates, it also gave the authority to shift the responsibility of felons, eligible felons, from state supervision, which is known as parole, or county supervision, which is known as probation. After AB 109 was implemented, the second attempt to decrease the prison population was the passing of Proposition 47. This is called the Safe Neighborhood and Schools Act. This act implemented three broad changes to the sentencing laws. The first thing it did was it gave authority to reclassify eligible drug and theft offenses from felonies to misdemeanors. It also was retroactive, so eligible inmates can appeal to reduce their sentences even if they've already been sentenced. And thirdly, it gave felons the eligibility to have prior convictions reclassified as misdemeanors. So if a felon or if an individual was charged with a felony for a drug offense that would now be considered a misdemeanor, that individual could appeal to get that felony reclassified as a misdemeanor. And this proposition was only applicable to non-violent offenders. So individuals with violent crimes couldn't take advantage of the changes that came with Proposition 47. The next step that was taken to help to decrease the prison population was the passing of Proposition 57. This is called the Public Safety and Rehabilitation Act. This was passed in 2016, and essentially it's a credit system that allows for early release. So if inmates completed college courses, they would get a certain amount of credits. If inmates exhibited good behavior, they would get a certain amount of credits, etc. And these credits can be used to knock off time on the inmate's sentence. This proposition was applicable to both non-violent and violent offenders. So even if you had a violent crime, unlike Proposition 47, you had the ability to take advantage of this credit system. One thing that Proposition 57 did was focus on rewarding the rehabilitation process. So for those inmates who were proactive in their development and rehabilitation, the state or the government would reward these individuals by potentially letting them leave prison earlier than they would have if this credit system wasn't put in place. from a Christian perspective, there are leaders who are on board with the California prison reform process. A way that the Christian faith has influenced the criminal justice system is by being proactive in the rehabilitation process. So they have ministries. One big ministry called Christian Fellowship actually would visit prisons on a weekly basis and allow inmates to partake in rehabilitation programs in order to have a successful re-entry into society. And so this is one big way that they've been influencing the criminal justice system, is by owning the rehabilitation process and re-entry process for inmates who want to partake in their particular program. Another way that the Christian faith influences the criminal justice system is by imposing morals and ethics in judicial decision making. And so, by the country being founded on Christian principles, the Christian faith will always be in the fabric of every aspect of America, specifically in the criminal justice department. In other countries that aren't based off of Christianity may have more severe punishments and exhibit more inhumane actions than America would, being founded on Christian principles. And the third way that the Christian faith has influenced the criminal justice system is by having an influence over the lawmaking process. So to go back to America being founded on Christian principles, the lawmaking process is filtered through a Christian worldview, per se. The unintended consequences of AB 109, Proposition 47, and Proposition 57 would be potentially releasing offenders prematurely. And what that means is, with specifically Proposition 47 and Proposition 57, allowing inmates to leave early may allow someone to enter into society not fully rehabilitated. So a lot of people that oppose these two propositions, that was one of the big fears, the fear of public safety. With Proposition 57, it has a more optimistic outlook because this proposition focuses on rewarding the rehabilitation process, opposed to Proposition 47, which just reclassifies certain crimes to a lower level so that inmates can be pushed out to the streets earlier. So one, this causes a fear of public safety, but this also can be a disservice to the inmate by prematurely pushing them into society without having the necessary life skills to be successful. And that directly impacts the recidivism rate. So this bill, AB 109, Proposition 47, and Proposition 57 have been working as intended, and there has been a significant decline in the prison population.